I'm Mrs. Princey, Associate Professor in Mental Health Nursing. I've got a case of 40-year-old man who had this stealing behavior since 18 years. He started this stealing behavior just to fulfill his needs as he was from a low socioeconomic background, and as and when the stealing behavior continued in his life rather than being to fulfill his needs, it started using it more and more to such an extent that he was not able to get rid of the stealing behavior. His home atmosphere was very distant and not communicative. His parents never gave that affection and attention towards the children. So he started searching for the emotional support and attention outside the home. So that is when he got into this group or a gang of friends who emotionally got knit, and the client developed such a bond with them that he enjoyed their company. He started spending a lot of time with the group, and he sought pleasure and excitement whenever he was there in the group. And he started to seek the pleasure and excitement in doing everything with his friends. He realized that the company was not accepted by the society, and it was not good for him to be in the group of friends, but he did not want to lose his support and break the relationship with his friends. Client's friends were already involved in so many unethical acts like stealing, robbery, alcoholism, smoking, and everything. But the client did not want to come out of his group, and in order to please his friends, he could do anything and everything. He started smoking the cigarette under the influence of his company or his friends, and once, when his father came to know about his bad company, he really scolded the client to such an extent that the client became very disheartened. And to gain some emotional support, he went out again with his friends, where they offered him the cigarette and he accepted it. Yes, so by understanding this case, you could really understand what is the condition I'm going to explain today. Right? So today I'm going to talk about the condition substance abuse disorder. So what do you understand by this condition, substance abuse or the substance use disorder? So we have got so many substances of abuse. It can be the alcohol, the various drugs in the form of opioids, the cannabis, hallucinogens, heroines, morphines, volatile solvents, so many substances that a person will abuse. That in a sense, they give us a little bit use, but when the person is not using it for the purpose, is overusing the substance, it can definitely harm his psychological and physiological well-being. So let us see about the substance use disorder. So what do you mean by the disorders of psychoactive substance use? Disorders of psychoactive substance use refers to the conditions arising from abuse of alcohol, psychoactive drugs, and other chemicals such as the volatile solvents. Before going to the disorder, it's very important to understand certain terminologies or terms, because these terms are frequently used when you come across the condition of alcohol abuse disorders or various other abuse disorders. When you come across these terms are commonly used, so it is important to understand few terms. Okay, let me tell you the first term, which is a substance. What do you understand by a substance? A substance refers to any drug, medication, or toxin that has got the potential of abuse, right? So any drug, any medication, or any toxin can be abused at any point of time. So a substance is nothing but it refers to a medication or a drug or a toxin which shares the potential for the abuse. The next term is the addiction. Addiction refers to physiological or psychological dependence on alcohol or any other drug of abuse that will affect the central nervous system to such an extent that withdrawal symptoms are experienced when the substance is discontinued. So, what do you understand by addiction is a dependency of a person on a drug or a medication or a toxin. What kind of a dependence? It is a psychological dependence or physiological dependence without which the person cannot lead his life to such an extent that the person will experience some central nervous system symptoms, especially the withdrawal symptoms we can call when he stops taking the drug of abuse, right? So such a condition is termed as the addiction. The next term is the abuse. What do you understand by the term abuse? It refers to the maladaptive pattern of substance use that impairs the health in the broader sense. So, when a substance is maladaptively used and it is going to impair the health of a person, then we call it as an abuse, right? So, the next term we have is the tolerance. Tolerance is a state wherein when a person is using a particular substance of abuse for a longer period of time or repeatedly is being administered with this substance of abuse, the particular drug will produce a decreased effect, or the person may require an increased amount or increased dose of the particular drug to produce the same effect what the drug used to provide. So say for example, the person used to have one bottle of alcohol. Yes, every day you used to have one bottle of alcohol. You used to get the pleasure or you used to feel, relaxed after drinking one bottle of alcohol. Over a period of time, this one bottle of alcohol is not sufficient for him to, seek the pleasure or to feel relaxed. He would require another extra bottle or another, a larger amount of the alcohol to get or to seek that kind of a pleasure and relaxation when you used to get. So that is a condition that we can understand he has become tolerant to the particular drug or to a substance of the abuse. The next term is the withdrawal state. What do you understand by withdrawal? It is a group of signs and It is a group of signs and symptoms that the person will experience when he stops taking a particular drug of abuse or when the amount or the dose of the particular drug of abuse is decreased or reduced. He will experience certain signs and symptoms which is known as the withdrawal symptoms. So these withdrawal symptoms can be to such an extent that the person may not be able to overcome, and he will experience a array of the symptoms, right? So that condition or that state is called as the withdrawal state. The next term is the dependence. What do you understand by dependence? It refers to certain physiological or psychological phenomena induced by repeated taking of the particular drug of abuse or the substance. So he becomes so much dependent that he will have some kind of physiological or psychological relaxation or pleasure when he takes up a substance of abuse. That state is called as dependence or the dependent state. So these are few terminologies which have been frequently used when you come across the disorders of substance abuse, and it's very much important to know these terms, which are nothing but the addiction, abuse. We have got the tolerance, withdrawal, and the dependence. Moving on to the ICD-10 classification of the substance use disorder. The chapter F10 to F19 is the one which is completely going to explain about the mental and behavioral disorders due to the psychoactive substance use. So in that we have the classification. F10 is going to give us the disorder of, in this the first one we have, that is the F10, when it's going to explain about the mental and behavioral disorders due to use of the alcohol. F11, mental and behavioral disorders due to the use of opioids. F12, mental and behavioral disorders due to use of cannabinoids. F13, mental and behavioral disorders due to use of sedatives and hypnotics. F14 is mental and behavioral disorders due to use of cocaine. F16, we have got mental and behavioral disorders due to use of the hallucinogens, right? So this is the ICD-10 classification of the substance use disorder. Moving on to the commonly used psychoactive substances. So what are these, psychoactive substances which are commonly abused? So number one, we have got the alcohol, we have the opioids, cannabis, cocaine, amphetamines and other symptomatic drugs. We have got the sedatives and hypnotics, example barbiturate group of drugs. Then we have got the example the volatile solvents. We have got the nicotine and other stimulants like caffeine. So these are the commonly used substances of abuse, otherwise called as the psychotropic drugs or the psychoactive substances of abuse. Moving on to the reason why a person will end up with the addiction or will end up with this substance abuse disorder. What is the cause or the etiology? So we have got the various factors or the theories which explain as to why a person will end up with this particular disorder. So number one, we have got the biological theory. So under the biological theory, the first one we have is the genetic vulnerability. So it is found that if there is a family history of alcohol abuse or drug abuse, then obviously, it can run in the family. Okay, many families you would have seen that if the father is alcoholic or he smokes a cigarette, okay, anybody in the family, maybe his children or whoever comes across this father, right, so will develop this behavior or habit of particular substance of abuse, because children are the one who are observing and who just see that what is being followed. Okay, they take the particular person as a role model, and that's how they also get this particular habit of getting into this substance of abuse. The next factor under the biological theory, we have the biochemical factors. So it has been found that the role of dopamine as well as the norepinephrine has been found in the uses of these particular group of drugs, that is cocaine, ethanol and opioid dependence. So that is the research study which has found that the people who are dependent on these drugs, that is the opioids, ethanol and cocaine, have seen that there is an abnormality in these neurotransmitters, that is the dopamine as well as norepinephrine. And also, in case of the alcohol dependence, it is being found that the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase as well as the neurotransmitters are having the abnormalities in case of the alcohol dependent syndrome. So that is the biochemical factors, the influence of these, neurotransmitters which happens, the abnormalities which happens because of the drug of abuse. The next factor under the biological theory, we have the neurobiological theory. So it has been found that a drug addict has got a deficiency of this particular hormone, that is the endomorphins. So it has been noted that these endomorphins are very much low in people who are addicts. Another important thing that the research study has found is the enzyme which is produced by a given gene. Say for example, the father who is an alcoholic, okay, the gene has been transferred, the gene has been transferred to the son or to the child, right? So when he grows up, this particular gene is going to have an influence on the hormones as well as the neurotransmitters, contributing to the development of such a kind of a personality trait that is more sensitive to the peer pressure. So when the particular child grows up, okay, becomes an adult, is more, prone for getting attached to the peer pressure, wherein he may get into the bad company and get all those habits again, right? So that is the influence of the gene. So the enzymes which is been given by the genes can bring about the changes in the hormones or the neurotransmitter in an individual, which he is prone for developing such a kind of a personality where he is more sensitive to the peer pressure. The third thing, according to the neurobiological theory, is the withdrawal as well as the reinforcing effects of the drugs. So when a person, ingests the particular drug of abuse or alcohol, whatever it may be, he gets that reinforcement to do it. He gets the pleasure, he gets the relaxation, which motivates him to, again go into this habit of consuming the particular drug of abuse or the alcohol. Right. So again, withdrawal state. So if he even makes up his mind to withdraw from the substance of abuse. So withdrawal state itself, okay, wherein he experiences lot of signs and symptoms, which is going to become very unpleasant for him to control. So which again makes a person to get into this behavior of substance abuse. Another theory, according to the neurobiological theory, is if a person is having any kind of a comorbid medical condition, for example, chronic pain. To control this chronic pain, you would have tried many measures and medications or therapies and everything. You would have even got into this behavior of substance abuse, alcohol abuse, wherein he gets, relaxed or he gets pleasure out of it just to, overcome the pain, the negative coping mechanism the person can develop when he is chronically suffering with some of the morbid conditions, right? So this is about the neurobiological theory which explains the reason why a person ends up with the substance of abuse. So that is the biological theory. Moving on to the second theory, which is the behavioral theory. So what is it according to the behavioral theorists? Okay, so according to them, they explain that drug abuse is the result of conditioning or cumulative reinforcement from the drug use. Initially, the person may start the drug of abuse as an entertainment, right? So this, when he takes, he gets the pleasure, he knows that he feels relaxed. So it is a kind of a learning that has happened in him. So whenever he comes across this any kind of a stressor in his life, he knows that this is the one which is going to calm him down. So that conditioning has happened in him. So, to get the reinforcement, he may use the drug. That is the first thing, which is the conditioning which has happened in a person. The drug use causes the euphoric experience. So, what is that euphoric experience? So, euphoric experience is the happiness or the joyous feeling that the person will experience when he takes up the drug. So, it is been perceived as a reward for a person, right? So he feels to follow or he is motivated to go back to this particular behavior of taking up the drug. So that is another, explanation what the behavioral theorists give. Another thing is the stimuli or the environment, that is the setting which is associated with taking up this, alcohol or a drug of abuse may become reinforcing for a client. Or for example, even if the client has, completely stopped taking the alcohol, when he is exposed to such a kind of an environment or a setting or a stimuli, he gets triggered, he starts getting the craving, and he ends up, taking the drug again. So the failure to relapse, wherein he is gone to the previous setting or he experiences the similar kind of a situation where he is not able to control his craving. So relapse of the condition can happen. So these are the reasons why a person ends up with the alcohol according to the behavioral theorists. The next etiological factor we have is the biological factor. So under the biological factor, we have got the general rebelliousness. Okay, generally, if a person is having such a kind of a personality, always being rebellious or very aggressive kind of a personality, okay, such a kind of a person can end up with this kind of a behavior of substance abuse. The next one we have is a sense of inferiority. So when a person has got the sense of inferiority, when such a person enters into a group or into a gang, he wants to identify himself, he wants to overcome this inferiority feeling, he has to follow the rules and regulations of a particular group. So he may end up with the behavior what the group is being followed. The next is the poor impulse control, the inability of a person to have self-control, to control his impulses or drives. So in those cases, say for example, if he is into a lot of stress, is not able to cope up with the stress with the usual coping mechanism as a negative coping mechanism, he tries to resist, but he ends up abusing the substance of abuse or alcohol. So that kind of a person who is having a very poor impulse control can end up with a behavior. The next is a low self-esteem. Next is the inability of a person to cope up with the stressors of everyday life. That is, if a person is having very poor coping mechanism. Next one is loneliness, unmet needs. If a person is not able to meet his needs, okay, according to his wish, then he may end up with alcoholism or any other drug of abuse. Person who is having desire to escape from the reality, person who is having a desire for experimentation, right? So he just wants to try it and see how it is going to give that pleasure or relaxation. So he starts as an experimentation, then he ends up becoming an addict. Some people take it as a sense of adventure, for pleasure seeking, mechoism as well as sexual immaturity. See, in all these cases, the person is at risk of developing or getting into this particular disorder of substance abuse. So this is the psychological factor which is contributing to the reason why a person ends up with the substance abuse. The next factor, the next etiological factor, we have the social factor. So what are the social factors which can contribute to the substance use disorder? Number one is the religious reasons. Okay, in some kind of a religious group, the use of alcohol and some drugs are very common. So as a ritual, as a culture, they start using this, but later on it becomes an addiction wherein a person cannot live without the particular substance of abuse. So again, especially during the adolescent period of time, they want to identify themselves in the particular group. So there is a lot of peer pressure when a person wants to identify himself in a group. The person can end up with the behavior of substance abuse because of the pressure from his peers. Other social factors like urbanization, extended period of education, unemployment, overcrowding, poor social support. We have got the effects of television as well as the mass media, which is going to greatly influence an individual, and especially in some kind of the occupations. This use of alcohol and the abuses are very common, especially if you take the occupations like chef or a barman, executives, salesmen, actors, entertainers, army personnel. So these are the professions wherein there may be a risk of taking up the alcohol as an entertainment initially and can end up with becoming an addict, right? So these are the social factors which is contributing to the etiology of substance abuse. So if you take the cause for substance use disorder, so we have got the biological cause, the behavioral theory which explains about the positive reinforcement the person gets it, and we have got the psychological cause as well as the social factors. The next etiology is the easy availability of the drug. So how is this going to contribute to the cause of the substance abuse? So if any drug or anything which is easily available, it is a normal human tendency to accept it. Similarly, if a person is having any medical condition, and if the doctors are prescribing certain medications to calm him down, especially this benzodiazepine group of drugs to bring about relaxation, so when it is being prescribed, so the person can abuse the use of this prescription. So he can become so much dependent on this benzodiazepine group of drugs, without which he cannot live at all or survive at all, okay, lead his life. So in those cases, the drugs can be easily availed from the client. So there are some drugs which is not legally prescribed. So these drugs are easily available for the group. Okay, it can be in the form of street drugs, which is available, illicit sources or drug trafficking we call, right? So like nicotine or opioids or this cannabis, heroines. So all such drugs which is easily available on the street, okay, illicit sources which the person is making use of can end up with the substance use disorder. The next etiology is the psychiatric disorder. Certain kind of the psychiatric disorders can make a person to even end up with a substance use. So say for example, in case of depression, anxiety, personality disorder, especially the antisocial type of the personality disorder, organic brain disorders, and even in the schizophrenics, to cope up with such a kind of a stress or depression, anxiety, they end up the negative coping mechanism of using this substance of abuse. So even in the psychiatric disorders, there is a reason the person who is not able to cope up with these conditions can end up with the negative coping mechanism leading to the substance use disorder. So these are the various etiological factors which is contributing to the development of substance use disorder. So we have got the biological factors, the behavioral theories, we have got the psychological factors, social factors, easy availability of the drugs, as well as some psychiatric disorders wherein a person who is not able to cope up with the stress can end up with the abuse. Right. So moving on to the consequence of substance use. So what is the consequence of using this substance of abuse? If you take the overall consequence, the common consequence is it is going to bring about the physiological, psychological dependence, or both physiological or psychological dependence the person can end up with. In a healthy person, it can cause an unhealthy lifestyle as well as the behavior which contributes to poor intake of the nutrition or the diet. The person who is chronically using the substance of abuse can end up with impairment in the social and occupational functioning, also having a lot of problems in his personal life, financial problems and legal problems that the person can end up with if he is having the associated behavior of robbery, stealing, assault, all those things because of the substance use. So that is a chronic consequence of being a substance abuse. So if the drug abuse has started during the adolescent period itself, so it can lead to various behavioral and emotional consequences in the adolescent, including depression, family problems with the relations, or there'll be problems in the scholastic performance, as well as the chronic substance abuse problem which I had listed earlier. If the substance of abuse happens in a pregnant woman or the woman who is pregnant, so it can have a jeopardized effect on the child. So loss of the fetus can be the result or the consequence of the substance of abuse in case of pregnant women. So psychoactive substance use can have a negative impact on the person, especially termed as the bad trips. That is nothing but it can end up with psychosis, which is termed as the drug-induced psychosis or long-term psychosis when is chronically being using this alcohol or the drug of abuse. In case of IV drug abusers, again it is going to cause a life-threatening, complications. Illicit street drugs can also cause major effects, especially in terms of the toxic effect, allergic reactions, because they may, dilute these drugs. So all these can lead to a lot of allergic reactions as well as toxic effects. So these are the various consequence when a person is using the substance of abuse. So let us see the process of development of alcoholism. So how will the person, develop this process of getting into alcoholic behavior or alcoholism? Initially, we have got, so the first thing what happens in a person who is alcoholic, he may just want to just experiment, right? So it all starts with the experimentation due to reasons like peer pressure or because of curiosity, just wants to know how it is going to bring that calming effect or relaxing effect. So he would have got the feedback from his friends that it's very good. No, you get relaxed, you just forget everything in the world, all your no stress and everything, you will forget, you feel very happy after taking this, right? So such a kind of feedback that he has got creates a curiosity in a person to just try it once, right? So it all starts with the entertainment, just because of the peer pressure or because of the curiosity. So he starts experimenting in the first. Then, so as a recreation, he can start taking this alcohol in some events or in some functions, like it can be the marriages or get together, college functions, various parties, conferences, wherein the person occasionally takes up this alcohol as a recreation, right? So but later he realizes that whenever he comes across this stress, he wants to take up this alcohol because he just wants to forget. So that's how, as a recreation, he started taking, can end up becoming a alcoholic person. The next one is as relaxational, right? Whenever a person wants to relax, say for example, on holidays or on weekends, the person just wants to relax, he takes up the alcoholic drink. So he enjoys that moment. So gradually he may start or end up with this behavior or habit of consuming the alcohol every day, and he can end up becoming a alcoholic as a relaxational method that he started, but ending up becoming an alcoholic person. The next one is compulsive. Okay, so what is being compulsive? So it is a development which has happened in a person. Initially, it started as a recreational, source to start with the alcohol. Occasionally, he was drinking the alcohol. Then he started it daily. It is a situation that the person has become very much compulsive, right? So he goes in, takes up the bottle and drinks, right? So such a kind of situation that he will end up to get the pleasure and to avoid various discomforts, or to avoid this discomfort which happens because of the withdrawal or the stoppage of the particular alcohol, right? Because withdrawal state is the one wherein there is an array of signs and symptoms the person experiences, which is really causing a lot of discomfort. So to avoid that, you can take the alcohol. So that's how that alcoholic behavior will become very much compulsive, without which that he cannot lead his life. That's how the person becomes an alcoholic. So this is the process of a person develops this behavior of the alcoholism. In the early stage, we have got three important things which happens. One is the blackouts as well as the preoccupation. So what do you mean by increased tolerance? It is a state wherein the person requires more and more, amount of the alcohol to get such a kind of a pleasure or relaxation. So earlier he would require only one bottle to get that pleasure or a relaxation. But now it is not so. He is tolerant to the one bottle. That means it is not giving him any kind of a pleasure or a relaxation. So he needs an additional bottle or another two bottle to bring that pleasure effect. So that is what is the increased tolerance the person will develop during the earlier stage of alcoholism. The next thing is a blackout. So inability of a person to recall or to recollect the events which happened during the state of alcoholism or during the time of the influence of alcohol. So during the time of consuming the alcohol, when he is in that state of pleasure, he will not remember whatever has happened during that time. So that is a condition or state known as the blackout. The next one is a preoccupation. So preoccupation is nothing but always thinking about when and where he can avail this alcoholic drink. So he will be so much, obsessed. We can say that he always being preoccupied as to how to drink, when to drink, where to drink. So all these scenarios, it can be the increased tolerance, the blackout, or the preoccupation, makes a person to understand that he is in the earlier stage of alcoholism or becoming an addict. So when all these scenarios or symptoms are noted, that is increased tolerance, blackout, or preoccupation, we understand that he is in the first stage or the early stage of the alcoholism. The second stage we have is a middle stage. So what do you understand by the middle stage? So in the middle stage, there is a loss of control over the amount, time. So in the middle stage, what is the thing which is happening? So here there is a loss of control over the amount, time, as well as the occasion of consuming the alcohol. So what do you understand by the loss of control over the amount? So amount is the quantity of the alcohol, right? So he is not getting pleasure or is not getting that effect with one glass of alcohol. No, he requires a lot or huge amount of alcoholic drinks to get that effect. So that is called as the amount, loss of control on amount or the quantity of the alcoholic drink, control over the time. So at any time he wants, right? Early in the morning he wakes up, the first thing he thinks is about alcohol, or when he sleeps, when he goes for bed, before that he requires alcohol for a sound sleep. So at any time in a day he is into this behavior of taking the alcohol. So that is the loss of control over the time. Next is loss of control over the occasion. So earlier it used to be like occasionally he was drinking the alcohol, right? So only during marriages or some functions or some ceremonies that he used to have. But now there is no occasion at all, right? So anytime, any occasion, every day is an occasion for him. So he ends up drinking it every day. So there is a lack of control over the amount or the quantity of alcohol, over the time, as well as the occasion of drinking in the middle stage of the alcoholism. So during this middle stage, there's another important thing which happens. So he understands, he realizes that he is getting into this behavior of alcoholism is not good. So he tries to stop, or he tries to have this period of break of taking the alcohol. So it is called as abstinence period. So even during the abstinence period, okay, the time that he stops taking the alcohol, he has got this lot of craving, or he becomes very much, or he becomes very much weak, or we can say the weakness that he will develop towards this alcohol. So if there is a little pressure from his friends, or if there is a little positive regard that he gets for alcohol during abstinence period, so he will immediately go back and he will start drinking. So he's not able to have a control over himself, over his mind, right? So that kind of a behavior can happen when he is even having a thought of stopping the alcohol, but the craving or the situation, the setting, stimuli, which will trigger again for going back for a drink, is an obsession for a person. So that is what happens during the middle stage of the alcoholism. The last stage is a chronic stage. So what happens in the chronic stage? So during the chronic stage, the person, every time he gets drunk, okay, even if he gets a little amount of alcohol, is very happy. So he gets every time he gets a chance, he drinks the alcohol. So he is ready to do anything for the alcohol. It can be willing to beg, borrow the money. He's even ready to steal to have the supply of the alcohol. So his priority in the chronic stage is living to drink alcohol rather than priority over his family or his job. So that is the time we can understand he's out of the family, he's out of the track, no responsibility of the family or the occupation, social functioning, everything is impaired, all these areas are impaired. So he just needs the alcohol, that's all. right? So for that, he can do anything and he can go to any extent. Okay, that is the last stage of the alcoholism, which is a chronic stage. So these are the various stages. We have got the initial stage, the middle stage, and the final stage is the chronic stage of alcohol. That's how we classify the person as chronic alcoholic, right? So this is about the brief introduction to the substance use disorders. In the future videos, you'll be learning about the various disorders. As I told you, what are these psychotropic substance uses, how the various disorders a person will end up based on the substance of abuse that he takes. Hope you all have understood the topic. Thank you.